There's a thin line between free speech and when it crosses a line and causes violence. And when you start using words of that he's a Nazi and comparing him to Hitler.
No, that is absolutely not how that works, actually. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel for another quick hit video. These shorter videos I'm doing reacting to viral moments and breaking stories. I want to cover a really wild segment on CNN where a Republican senator and a prominent CNN host on Sunday clashed over free speech and the First Amendment, and some of the moments and exchanges were memorable, not in the best way, but let's watch and take a look at the first clip.
I want to move on to sort of a different version of what we have seen this week from the president. He claimed that 97% of stories about him on newscasts are negative, and he said, I think that's really illegal. Here's a little bit more of what he said.
When somebody is given 97% of the stories are bad about a person, that's no longer free speech, that's no longer, that's just cheating.
Side note, it can still be free speech, even if it is very biased and unfair from any ostensible news network, if it's 97% negative, but still free speech for sure. So not off to a great start there, Trump, but let's see where this conversation goes.
Senator, he really seems to be redefining free speech as speech that is only favorable to him. I can't imagine that you're comfortable with that as somebody who swore an oath to the Constitution, and a pretty prominent part of the Constitution is the right to free speech.
He didn't say free speech, he said cheating. And
he literally said it's not free speech. I hate when they do that. I hate when they gaslight us, politicians of any kind. Don't freaking gaslight me, bro. Ugh.
And what he was referring to is elections. When you have 98 or 97% of the news stories over that, he said no. He just said it. I'm playing back exactly the message.
97% of stories about him on
he
newscasts
said was cheating. But he said it was cheating. I'm repeating the clip you just played because I didn't watch that. You just played it for me for the first time. Okay, then what would he be referring to when he said cheating?
He was referring to
because he didn't say free speech.
He believes it was a very long statement that he made. He was saying that he believes that the stories on network television about him are negative, and that it should be potentially illegal. That is my question to you.
Okay, well, that is not. I can't, Dana. I can't answer a question I didn't hear. I'm here.
Am I crazy? He said, when it's 97% negative coverage, that's not free speech, that's illegal, which is not a true statement if you believe in the free press and the First Amendment. Now, of course, we can debate whether the networks, he's talking about traditional, potentially TV broadcasters with licenses and access to the airwaves. Maybe we should just abolish that, sell that off, close down the FCC, and then everybody can do cable or whatever. But you can't say that, oh, well, it's illegal for them to do too much negative coverage about me. It might be biased, and then maybe people stop watching them. That would be totally fine. I think if any network is covering a politician and it's 97% negative, that's probably a problem. Like, nobody is 97% bad in reality. So that's a pretty clear evidence of bias to me. That the source for that comes from the Media Research Center, which is a conservative media watchdog. You can definitely quibble with some of their methodology, but just assume it's true. It's still not illegal, though. And I don't understand. Well, I do understand it. Why is it so hard for Republican politicians to just say, yeah, Trump's wrong about that one? Like, it's so hard for them. They are so afraid of possibly offending Trump in any way. I just find it very kind of pathetic, honestly. But let's keep going because we actually have not gotten to the good or interesting part of this clip yet.
I'm repeating what the clip you just played. What the clip you just played said that and it said that it is cheating. That's his words. That's not me making the assumption. That's not paraphrasing what he said. That's the clip you played. And that 100%, because we've had this conversation, that 100% refers to elections. When you have 97% of the news stories on him that's constantly telling bad stories, and by the way, that wasn't even close what was happening when Biden in office. You guys were covering it up constantly, what he was doing. And so when you 97% of the...
I mean, that's true. Absolutely. Mainstream media covered up for Joe Biden's decline, and the cover up and scandals, disgraceful, terrible. Not illegal, though, in a free press. That's a reason why people should stop watching them and watch other things. Watch independent political YouTubers who are stunning and handsome and gorgeous. But it's not a reason that their speech can be categorized as illegal. And he surely knows that. He's just trying to get out of the question because he doesn't want to say anything that could be possibly construed as disagreeing with Trump, I guess. I don't know.
7% of the news stories are negative about him, and 99% about Pete Hegseth is negative. It is cheating because you're putting out a narrative that isn't true.
I guess my question is, if you just kind of take a step back, sir, because let's say he was talking about, you speak Trump speak, you talk to him all the time. Let's just say you're right that when he said cheating, he in his mind was referring to elections. But it is since the beginning of time in the United States of America, presidents have not liked the criticism that they got when they get coverage that they don't believe is favorable to them. But they have said that's just part of being the president in the United States of America with the free press. You don't think there's a slippery slope going on here with that?
Well, I would like to go back and look at the comparisons of how many negative stories ran against Biden, against Obama, against Clinton, and even against Bush 41 and Bush 43. And I'm just saying, he didn't say he was going to crack down. He said it was cheating. I'm just repeating the word.
He said it was illegal, which would surely imply he's going to crack down. No? Yeah, to me, it would at least.
Words, but I'm just saying there is a problem, and I agree with him. There is a problem. There isn't any positive negative stories that our left-leaning media outlets can tell about him. And look,
free speech?
Has he been such a bad president? Absolutely, I believe in free speech. Without a question, I believe in free speech. There's a thin line between free speech and when it crosses a line and causes violence. And when you start calling someone fascist, which is what we've seen prescribed on the bullets and on the magazines of these individuals, when you start using words of that he's a Nazi and comparing him to Hitler, and I'm not saying you've done that, I'm saying this is the negative stories that have been played about him, there is a problem at some point. And
sorry, I have to stop him here, though, because I've been very critical of the hyperbole towards the Trump administration. I hate that people constantly invoke the Nazis, but it is free speech to say that, like to say something very offensive about someone or to mischaracterize them, to call them vile names. That is 100% free speech, protected by the First Amendment, the freedom of the press, free speech, all of that. And I don't know what he's suggesting, unless you actually call for violence and what you say qualifies as either a true threat or incitement of violence. Just saying something terrible at somebody, no matter how terrible, is not incitement of violence in legal understanding, in the First Amendment. And he should understand that as a sitting U.S. senator who says he strongly supports free speech. You can't say, yeah, I support free speech, but not once they start calling us Nazis and fascists. I mean, the same way they call them, like the Republicans will call Democrats Marxists, communists, traitors, scum, whatever. I don't really like any of this. I want us to have constructive political discourse and dialogues, not constantly throwing bombs at each other and calling each other the worst things imaginable, but it's all free speech. So I really am very concerned by this train of thought here.
And some people have to be held accountable, but free speech is free speech. Hateful speech is also free speech. But when it leads to violence, now that's a crossover, and people should be held accountable for that.
So he totally loses me here because, yes, whenever things cross over into violence, people should be held accountable. The people that do the violence should be held accountable and prosecuted harshly. Anyone who helped them do the violence, any collaborators, and potentially anybody who, in the very narrow circumstances of speech that are circumscribed under incitement, directly incited the violence. But if I simply say, so-and-so is a Nazi, so-and-so is a fascist, and someone else there goes out there and kills them, you can't prosecute me for anything. I've just engaged in free speech. The same way that when, God forbid, there's some act of political assassination or violence against a Democratic politician, you can't go and say, well, Trump called them all this, and that, so he's responsible. So prosecute him, hold him accountable. No, maybe he should tone down his rhetoric. Maybe the Democrats should tone down the rhetoric. I say that all the time, but it's not a crime to not do so. And in fact, I have to show you a compilation of Trump calling people fascists because it's relevant here.
American politics today is between these far-left fascists led by Harris and her group. We have a fascist person running who's incompetent. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, socialist. She's not actually a socialist. She's gone past that. Somebody's got to explain this woman. There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist.
So unless you're just going to be totally hypocritical, you cannot suggest that Democrats are somehow committing a crime or it's not free speech for them to call people Nazis or fascists. Unless you're also going to say that about Trump. And I highly doubt this guy is going to call for the prosecution of Trump for mean words about the other side. The real lesson here is that free speech has to include everything. We cannot make hate speech or really offensive speech some sort of special category. Nobody agrees about what that means. And then it will inevitably be used to crack down on the democratic process and open debate and discourse. And while we should all encourage each other to see our common humanity, tone down the rhetoric, we can't be unclear at all about what the First Amendment is and why its protections are so ironclad. And this senator seems deeply, deeply confused about basic facts and realities and principles about free speech and the First Amendment. And that's really not okay. That's my take, at least. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Hit the like button while you're at it. And guys, let me know what you think of these quick hit short form videos. And if you're interested in more of my content, check out the links in the description and subscribe to my podcast, Brad vs. Everyone, where I take on media insanity, internet craziness, and political dysfunction in longer form. And with that, guys, we'll talk again real soon.